up until several years ago, they thought the giant squid out of Japan, off the coast of Japan, was, giant squid was a cryptid. It was mythological. Over time had reported these creatures, that can engulf ships and the Kraken and things like that. And,
watching that thing disappear.
Yes.
It was almost like a straight line. It was like it went behind a straight line and it was gone. Just completely gone.
And it did. It was like it slipped into it went into a house or something. It just all of a sudden it just went
and like it went behind a wall.
Like it went behind a wall. That's where people start to ask the question, is it possible that there are some sort, and I know this is a stretch, but is it possible that they could be going into some sort of a portal or interdimensional being that can move into, thank you very much, Vesta, stepping into another place, for lack of a better word? Hey everybody, Jeff here with the Curse of Oak. Whoops, I ended up with the J-Free 906. Got a little mixed up there. J-Free 906 podcast, and we have Mike Owen and John Edwards joining tonight. Guys, how you doing?
Outstanding.
Great.
I tell you what, I'm really excited for tonight. We have a very special guest. We're going to bring him on here with us in just a couple minutes. But before we do that, I want to throw this out there. If you guys out there watching the show here tonight, appreciate you very much for being here, of course. And if you would, click on that subscribe button for us and give us a thumbs up. Even if you like our show just a little bit, give us a thumbs up, and that helps with the YouTube algorithms. We all get to have the pleasure of talking to our special guest here tonight. Why not share it with everyone that's out there, right? So click and subscribe. And if you click on that notification bell, right away when I come out with new content, we come out with new content and get things rolling. We also have our Patreon channel, patreon.com/jfree906, if you want to help support the show. And I have several patrons out there. I appreciate each and every one of you so very, very much. Mike, you got me started in this Bigfoot thing, and I tell you, I'm still a skeptic, but we got this guest tonight. He's changing my mind, as we go along here a little bit. But so are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
All right, folks, without further ado, let's bring on our very special guest, Mr. Russell Acord. Sir, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great, Jeff, Mike, John. What's going on, guys?
Hey.
Great.
Having a great day. Russ, I got the pleasure of meeting you, talking with you, having breakfast with you, and hearing your presentation out in Vernal, Utah at Phenomicon last year. And it was fantastic. And as I mentioned, Mike put me up to talking to you guys when I was out there, because I've always been on the fence with Bigfoot, and still I'm a skeptic. I've not had any experience of my own to say that, I think that might have been Bigfoot. Never. But then after coming out and hearing your presentation, and Dr. Mayer, and also Ronnie, Bryce didn't show up. He wasn't there much of the time. He kind of showed up at the end. But after hearing the presentations that you all gave, I thought, okay, I've got to look into this. Tell us a little bit. I've had that pleasure to hear about you speaking and all of that. And also two of your books. I'm actually still reading. I'm not done yet, but I'm still reading. But it was such a pleasure. Tell us a little bit about Russell Acord and how you got involved into looking into Bigfoot in the first place.
Well, I'd have to say, I would imagine about 95% of the population got involved with it because of that Patterson-Gimlin film from 1967. Roger Patterson, Bob Gimlin, down in Bluff Creek, filmed something that appeared to be Bigfoot walking across the river bottom. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing that as a kid. My folks took us to a theater and we watched that. And I think I was 6 or 7 years old, but when I saw that, I couldn't, there was no turning back for me. I thought, okay, if it's out there, I'm going to find it. And here I am, I'm living in West Virginia at the time, and I had free reign of the hills. My parents didn't worry about me. We have copperheads, rattlesnakes, black bears, and they just turned me loose in the woods because they knew, well, if a bear got me, one less mouth to feed. We were a family of 7, so what, But I spent a lot of time exploring in the mountains, and I say mountains, and at that age, maybe I was only 100 yards from the house. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it felt like mountains, and I went all over the place.
Mhm.
So I've always had that desire to follow up on that. And if there was something out there, if that indeed was true, I needed to see it for myself. You can listen to people's stories all day long, but it's more believable when you come face to face with it. And that's what I've done for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
I'm 57 years old, and I've seen some very, very intriguing stuff that I would imagine a lot of people would just run to the nearest newsstand and say, "I seen Bigfoot," but I'm not there yet. I'm not, from what I see, because visual is much different than tangible. I mean, I can show you a Photoshop of me hanging out with the Kardashians, and it's not true. So,
Right.
I've seen a lot of things that are pretty compelling. I picked up some evidence, some hair samples, footprints, heard knocks, heard howls, the whole spectrum. But until I come face to face, when I'm 10 feet away and I look at it, and I'm keenly aware that this thing is real and breathing right in front of me.
Yep.
If I come on a podcast and say I've seen that, then I promise you I've seen that. But until then, I have to stay a bit reserved. I believe in ability. I believe that, I've known Bob Gimlin for a long time, and he's never wavered, never. And I trust that what he saw that day is exactly the way he describes it.
Right.
And I think, I don't know. I just, until I'm there, and full commitment, I'm just going to keep researching.
Yeah. And speaking of that film, there's been a lot of people that have said, "Oh, it's fake. It's fake." When you dissect it and you really take a look at the fact that, the kind of camera, and Mike has talked about this, the type of camera that they used back then, they didn't have cell phones. It was a mechanical camera.
Yeah. There were no electronics.
Exactly. And they didn't have spandex back then to make a suit fit so well that it showed muscle tone and all of that. And then the arm length and the breasts. I mean, the whole thing. I don't know. A lot of people say, "Oh, that there was a guy, somebody, one of the people that posted a question up and said something about, oh, there was a guy that came out and said he was the guy in the suit."
Sure, he did. Anybody can say that.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a great story for you guys. Then I've been working with Bob Gimlin for quite a while, and I've been working on some documentary stuff with him, and I've got hours and hours of Bob talking, Bob's life.
Wow.
Bob, horrible jokes and his really funny ones, and his life right after the sighting, the years that followed, and how he was treated, and how it destroyed his reputation and his life, because all the locals would literally, not all the locals, but there were a good many of the locals that would berate him in front of crowds. Or his poor wife, worked at a bank. Now, when you're a teller at a bank, or somebody at a bank, and somebody walks up and starts speaking to you, and they say really bad things to you, she remained professional. But I'll tell you what, it was working its way to shredding their relationship. But they held on.
Yeah.
But they never made it easy for her or for him. So I've been working on this thing with Bob, and I said, "Bob, I'm going to do something very controversial." He said, "What's that?" I said, "I'm going to interview you." And he said, "Well, haven't you been doing that for the last few years?" I said, "No, we're going to do a whole different interview.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me what happened from start to finish. Give me that story." And right now, that story is actually, it's online. Did you watch that animated thing that I had at Phenomicon?
Yes. Yeah. And I wrote that down. I actually have a link to it down below.
Yep. You can actually buy that now and watch.
$12.99, I think it is.
Details in that story that'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
But I told Bob, I said, "I'm going to have this interview with you." And I sat down, and that interview is completely different than what you see on that. It's just Bob being candid and just saying it like it is. And then what I did was, I said, "I'm going to go," this is no joke, "I'm going to go a half mile down the street here, knock on the door and have that same interview with Bob Hieronymus. They live a half mile apart.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
So they're neighbors. So I met Bob at the door, Bob Hieronymus at the door, and I said, look, I'm working with Bob Gimlin doing a documentary, and I'm just doing everything. I said, talk to his wife and got her permission and his permission, and I said, look, I'm just gonna be candid with you. I just want to set the camera here in your living room, and I want you to tell me why you think the way you think and what you have to say about it, and tell me your involvement. Give me all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, are you serious? I said, absolutely. I said, I'm not here to tell you you're right or wrong, and I'm not here to tell you that Bob's side is right or wrong. I could care less. At this point, I don't care. What I'm doing, the basis of this interview is to be like people hearing a court case. I want them to hear Bob's side. I want them to hear your side. Let them decide for themselves. And wherever it falls, it falls. I don't care. I interviewed him for a couple hours.
Wow.
He talked about, I don't want to ruin it for you, but the more I listened to him, the harder it was to listen to him.
Really?
But yeah. And he's a sweet guy. Very, very hospitable, very nice. Let me talk to him. I asked him some tough questions. I said, how do I know you're not lying to me, Bob? You know, why do you want me to believe you instead of Bob Gimlin?
Right.
What proof do you have?
Mm-hmm.
And he has like a head costume made from a maker that actually stepped forward and said that he had actually made the costume, and it looks nothing like it. Mm. But he hangs on to that, and he hangs on to those pieces and those details as if they are going to vindicate him somehow. But the more he talked about his side of the story, a courtroom would have seen through all of it.
Yeah.
Sweet guy,
mm-hmm.
very, very hospitable, very nice. He was generous enough to give me his time. Mm-hmm. So I have that interview, and I'm putting that together. That'll take me. It's going to take a little while because I want it to be cinematic and cool. Mm-hmm. And before I release that, I want people to actually be able to see it and feel it from both sides.
Yep.
And at the end, just basically look at the camera and say, look, you've heard both sides of the story. You have to make up your own mind. Yeah. I'm not here to tell you who's right and who's wrong. And I have to be unbiased on either one of them. I believe Bob. I believe Bob. Mm-hmm. That's I want them both to have their piece.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Right or wrong.
It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
Yep.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I'm the same way. And Seth Bound brought up a point here. I trust Russell's take on it. And that's something that, I gathered from speaking with you and getting to know you a little bit, what little time that we had, in Vernal talking, and then hearing you speak up on stage, and also Dr. Maria Mayer, listening to her speak as well, and her background, following in Jane Goodall's footsteps. And, and I thought, these people are not your run of the mill. Hey, let's go out there and get me a Bigfoot. I'm sorry to use that terminology, but that's it wasn't that kind of a thing. You guys come with educated backgrounds, very credible. And if you came to me and you walked up to me and said, Jeff, I've seen him. I've seen Bigfoot. And I don't have a photograph, but I've seen him. We were standing 10 feet away from each other, and I would believe you in a heartbeat, just because of you hit me with that type of credibility, with that kind of person. And I really would. I wouldn't question it, and I would do the same for Ronnie. I'd do the same for Dr. Mayer. So that's that. I think Seth Bound made it a very clear point there, that if you said it, I would believe it. And if you believe that film is real, and I do, just from watching it. So that puts me in a weird spot, because I'm like, I've not had an experience myself. So how do I say it's real? Bigfoot's real from that film? I want to, but yeah.
I'll give you a little something to chew on that film.
All right.
I took Bob. I swung by his house, picked him up in Yakima, drove him a day and a half back to Bluff Creek. Mm-hmm. And I said, Bob, I want you to, and I filmed it. I have it on YouTube where people can watch it for free. Basically, I had him walk where he and Roger walked. and then I had him walk the path that Patty walked.
Uh-huh.
Now, if you think about this, let's just break down all the BS. Just pretend for a second we didn't know there was a Bigfoot. We didn't know there was Bob or Roger. Let's just take the mechanics of it. None of us guys, not a one of us, can put on big clown feet that are bigger than our foot, put on a big costume and a mask without being pitched forward to be able to see the ground where your feet are hitting, because it doesn't fit up.
Yep.
I think even today's Halloween mask doesn't. You got to kind of look at where your feet are placement.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just look at just the facts of that and the surface that thing walked down across that river bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever it was walked seamlessly across cobblestone.
Right.
Didn't look down, literally looked over its shoulder and kept walking. Didn't break a stride, didn't stumble, didn't. Flawless movement. Just silky smooth, out of sight.
Yep.
On cobblestone. I challenge anybody that's listening to us or anybody to try that without having a costume on, just to walk in good hiking boots.
Right.
But this thing had it had the extra long feet on it, the extra long arms, wearing a costume, up against the face, and walking that smooth. I don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. Even by today's standards, you could walk that river bottom 20 times and try to do it that whole path down and out of sight without stumbling or without looking at your feet. We can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. When you watch that, the fluid movement of whatever it is moving across there, it's true. And like you said, the head turns back and looks, but it doesn't break stride. It just continues to walk. And, I don't know. It's very compelling. And that's the only thing we have that, there's been a lot of stuff out there now with the age of cell phones and people out there. And like, I'm going out this weekend I will get to her in just a minute, the lady that's taken me out to do a little bit of research on our own here in Florida. But, you look at the films and people zoom in and you get this pixelated, blurry something
blob
or other.
squatch. They call it a blob squatch.
Blob squatch. Yeah. And I'm just like,
can't see any
guys.
definition. And yeah.
I don't want to discredit the person that took that picture because they were seeing something with their eyes that we can't see. And then they try to take a good picture of it and that's not happening. So I don't want to take that away from them, but yet the evidence is not there for me.
For me, if you have to put red circles around it and describe it,
yes,
that makes it much more difficult for me. And if it's so pixelated that, I could look at the clouds and show you ponies and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, if you want to say that this is evidence, will it stand up in court? Will this fuzzy little blurry picture with a red circle in it, and if you look this way, it looks like an eye and it looks like a jawline. That's not going to hold up.
Yep.
That hold water. So it's going to take, and that's why I've been so stick in the mud about it, is I've seen some really cool stuff. But even with what I saw in California, I wanted secondary evidence. Okay, yes, I had visual of something that just was amazing. Now I want to see a footprint, hair, something to pair the two up. Not just one single standalone piece of evidence unless it's standing there in front of me.
Yep.
So I think I want to raise the standard for where what we call evidence instead of something that could be or might look like. I want more than that.
Yeah.
And I got to say that's why I'm a fan of the show. And when I heard that Jeff was going to be going out to Phenomicon, he made a comment about, I'm not sure about Bigfoot. I'm like, oh man, you're going to the right place. You got to talk to the Expedition Bigfoot guys because I really like the way they do their investigations. It's very credible. You challenge each other. You work well as a team. And I appreciate the science and effort that goes into your investigations, the way you do that. So if he was going to be out there, if anybody he needed to talk to, I said, you got to stop. You got to talk to those Expedition Bigfoot guys. So I'm glad that you two connected.
Yeah.
I want something, and this is going to hurt a little. I'm sure it will, because it always turns out this way. If you had to choose between one of the four of us that you were going to go out in the woods with and do research with, who do you take with you?
Russ.
Russ.
Easy. That's easy.
Yeah. No, it's
easy.
not gonna hurt at all because you're a survivalist.
Yes.
Even my camera guy told me he'd take Maria.
No.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
No.
Everybody tells, oh yeah, I love the show. My favorite's Maria, and I'm like, oh, well, okay.
No,
I'm not taking away from her at all. I mean, she's fantastic. But if I'm gonna be worried about surviving, I'm taking you. I mean, and
besides Russ, you've got the better hair.
Yeah, I noticed you're wearing a hat. I mean, what's
that was good.
What's with the hat? I mean, I don't.
It wasn't the hair day I expected it to be, so I had to.
Yeah, that's okay, Russ. Me either. Not my day.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Maria. She always has great hair out there, even if she's supposedly been camping, for 2 weeks. I mean, you look at that hair and you're like, okay, I don't know how she does it, but
yeah, she's ridiculous. Well, if you think about what we're doing out there, though, I mean, in all fairness, if we were out there cutting timber or crawling around in caves or in the dirt and the mud and that sort of thing, we're literally simply walking through the forest and gathering evidence with our eyes and listening and that sort of thing. So it's not, though the terrain is very difficult, it's not one of those things where we're getting stuff in our hair and we don't have dirty faces and dirty hands. It's surprisingly clean work that we do because we're working smarter, not harder.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, I know that Mike wanted to mention about, you talked about your camera guy. Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. I was going to say the other thing that I appreciate is that you guys are documenting what's happening out in the woods and what's happening, and you break that fourth wall and talk to the cameraman, and if he sees something, which he did off the bridge, the train bridge trestle, you talk about it. There's shows that won't break that fourth wall, and it's just about what's happening to the folks on the camera in front of the camera. And man, if he can keep up with you, he's got to be one tough guy.
You have no idea. He's ex-Army too, and he's a powerhouse. Being able to talk to him, because you're right, we're out there and breaking the fourth wall. You don't hear that very often. I'm glad you said that. For me to go out there and just talk to the camera and talk to the audience, it's a bit senseless to me, because it's not like the audience doesn't know that there's somebody there holding the camera.
Right.
So he's become more and more of a character because I literally bounce things off of him. We talk, and I can't imagine anybody in the woods that I'd rather be out there with, because he's level-headed. He's sure-footed until he got in Kentucky and fell off the big rock.
Oh man,
it looked like that hurt.
Yeah, but he does. He'll climb any mountain I want him to, and a lot of times I'll say, we're going that way. He's like, really? Come on. But it's worth it. It's worth it. I mean, we earn what we get. And that was the idea behind the show, was have this ex-military rogue, don't give a crap where the boundaries are. I'm going. And I want to be uncomfortable, and I just want to get after it. And they said, hey, we've got this cameraman that's just might be silly enough to try to keep up with him. And Zach Hall is probably, well, he's one of my best friends. I mean, literally just think the world of that man. And he's amazing as a camera person. Ronnie and Maria have a couple people that go with them. They each have their camera person, and but they generally stick together. So you're talking 2 warm bodies, Ronnie and Maria, and 2 more warm bodies with camera. And then, for me and Zach, we can make a much smaller footprint, and I don't have to listen to anybody. I can do whatever I want. That was one of the things the director said, look, I'll give you free reign. Just go get it. And it's like the dog on the leash. Let me go. It's worked out really great, because Ronnie Maria finds some really, really amazing stuff, and they'll call me in to, hey, you got to see this. What do you think? And if I find something that I know is right up Maria's lane or Ronnie's lane, it's like, hey, let's get hold of the team and bring them up. They got to see this. So we're covering a vast amount of area. We're spreading out instead of all of us walking in line and making noise. It gives us a lot more coverage that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it when there was a one part where you guys were, it was during the night vision and you heard a sound and you turned around and looked at him and you said, tell me you heard that. And I
Yeah.
just love that because we all did too. We're like, we all heard, I'm
Yeah.
going, yes, we heard that. But you were talking to the cameraman. You weren't talking to us, but he was like,
Yeah.
tell me you heard that. And I was like, I love that. It really is because you have another set of eyes and ears out there with you.
Yeah.
It's it's great. But, and so we all know, yes, we all realize that there's a camera person with you. And the things that and he's following you. Of course, you've got this backpack on. How much does this thing weigh again?
It's 92 pounds. Did you try it on at the comps?
No, I didn't, but I wanted that. And is this what's in it, or is this what you take with you?
Yeah, why didn't you put it on? Come on, Jeff.
This year, I tell you what, I'm going to Phenomicon. You'll be there, right? This year at Vernal. I'll do it this year.
Okay.
92 pounds. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
And this isn't what's in it, is it? Is this what goes in the backpack? Or is this just what you take?
The thermal imaging, the night vision goggles, the microphones, the batteries, the flashlights, most of that is parabolic mic. I'll stage that and take it with me wherever I could, whenever I need it. And if I'm going to stage out for the night, that parabolic mic, let me tell you something about that. There's a buddy of mine that makes those, Robert Kreider. And he does, he's an explorer. And he does Kreider exploration, but he makes those, and he's got a new design out now. And I already told him, I said, get one in the box for me. I want it because that is probably by far the best piece of equipment for sound I've ever used, bar none.
Wow.
That you can hear. Well, we actually used it. Where were we? We used it. We were pointing at the forest, and I handed the microphone, the headset to Maria. And you should have seen her eyes. She said, I could hear something way out there breathing in and out.
Wow.
And it was, you can hear things with his design. You can hear things that I've never heard. And I've tried other equipment. I'm not here trying to sell everything for Robert Kreider, but I'm telling you, he's got the best parabolic mic if anybody wants to actually do serious audio research.
Yeah. Well, that's something that you have to have. I mean, that's one of the things that, I wanted to mention also was that when you're out there doing these investigations, I'm one of these people that when I go out to do like a paranormal investigation, or I haven't really been out, researching Bigfoot yet too much. But when I do, my point is to be as quiet as I can, like you do. You find a spot, you hunker down, whether it be putting up all your, your tent and all of that kind of your camouflage and all that kind of stuff, you hunker down and you observe. I think you said one time, if the whatever is sitting still is going to notice that's moving. Yep. And that's the truth. And that's the way I like to approach these types of things. I want to sit still and watch and look for what's moving. But oftentimes we'll see, flashlights and talking and walking through the woods and cracking and banging. I mean, it's hard not to make noise. I mean, I'm not sure-footed in the woods as I'd like to be, but I think that's kind of they probably already, if they exist, they probably already know you're there, regardless of whether you got a flashlight or not. But I mean, that just kind of gets me with the flashlights and looking out there, and it's like you're telling them that you're there. They're going to hide from you, that more so, don't you think? I mean.
A lot of times it's like, I've been a hunter my whole life, hunted in Montana, and that's just, and I don't do it anymore after coming back home from the military. I don't hunt.
Yeah, I don't either. Not anymore.
But, before I got in the military, I was an avid hunter. I would hunt deer, elk, bear, and it wasn't about sport. I could care less if it had a big giant rack or a little tiny rack. It was about putting meat in the freezer. Like I said, 7 children.
Yep.
2 parents, 7 children, and it was a difference in how we ate through the winter. If I could get an elk down, that's a lot of meat.
Yep.
So a lot of times, if you're coming up on a hillside and you're moving, and I can go stealth mode. I can go full on stealth mode and be real quiet. But then if I do that and Zach makes a noise, I turn around and give him a look, and he's like, "What?" So I can't do that to him. It's just me. So now we can go very quiet, and he's quiet in the woods. But a lot of times when you know that you've got the wind in your favor, and that sort of thing. You're more forgiving about the noise. But you also think about these shows where people are walking around at night and they're just walking and there's nothing to see. They can't see anything. Well, I can see that like in a haunted house or in an urban environment. I can't run through the woods without some sort of illumination, without having eye protection on and not knowing where I'm going. I'm going to go over. I almost went over a cliff in Kentucky.
Well,
Crap out of me. I mean, you're talking about 100-foot drop. And I was just trying to get down this hillside, and I went to step, and I didn't feel anything, so I kind of resettled a bit further, and then I hit it with my flashlight, and I was almost committed to that step. So I talked to the producer, and I said, "Wait, I can't always do that, flat surfaces, but you got to also think about impaling your eyeballs on branches."
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you have to be smart about your research. You have to that tactical approach. If I wear my thermal image or my night vision goggles, you'll see in that picture with the stuff, there's 2 pair of military night vision goggles. One of them has a big lens on it back in the back there. One of them has the bigger lens on it, and then the other one has a smaller lens. Smaller lens is what you see most military personnel using going through the woods because it doesn't zoom in. The one with the big is a multiplier, and I can really see way out there, but it doesn't do squat for you if you're walking across the
right.
The whole of that piece of equipment is when you use night vision goggles, talk to any military guy, you only see things in green and those shades of green and black. And all the ground surfaces look even. But let me tell you, they're not. Looks like flat ground and drops out from underneath of you, and you've got a 2-foot ditch or something, and you end up breaking your face anyway. I do prefer the thermal imaging. I don't have a headset for thermal imaging, and I'm actually working on something like that with the military.
Oh, wow.
I can wear on my head as a headset that I can see thermal, because it gives you a really, really good, clear picture of the trees and everything else around you, because it's that difference. You can literally see bark green on a tree with thermal imaging.
Wow.
But if something with a heartbeat goes out in front of you, whether it's a mouse, a bat, a bear, a deer, I mean, it's like a spotlight. So for me, I want that head mounted, wear it while you walk, thermal imaging device. And once I get that in hand, I want to find one that's affordable, or get one made that's affordable, and then I'll try to market them and tell everybody, hey,
you're going to sell a bunch. I
just want to buy these things. They're working great.
Yep. Yeah, you will sell a lot of those.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, the picture of the stuff that you have on your backpack, the one thing that I didn't see was the Sasquatch you have on the back.
Yes.
The little action figure.
It's not there?
Let me look here. I'm going to... no, I don't see it.
Oh, man.
Wait, look, there he is.
Is
He's
it?
on my camera. Look at that.
Oh, there he is.
There. Just came today. Just in time. Look at that. Made an appearance.
That's hilarious.
That's a picture of the pickup truck with the backpack. Then you can zoom in on it. There it is. That backpack, I'm going to be shameless here for a second. Jeff Byers has a company called Creature Replica. And I wear that thing on my backpack because, number one, I asked his permission to wear it. I asked the network's permission if I could wear it. I actually really wasn't going to let them say no. I always wore that. So I thought, okay, so something's going to have your 6. I'm very serious out in the woods, and that's that little tiny piece of me that says I'm not a robot. At least I know how to have a little bit of fun. Mm-hmm. But his company, Creature Replica, makes those. So I wear those to wear because he's a very, very good friend of mine, amazing friend. And he's that one guy that if you ever get in real big trouble, he's the one phone call I'm going to make. Hey, Beth, I need bail money. He'll show up. bring a shovel, some lime, and some plastic and some duct tape. Don't ask any questions.
Well, he's been a favorite with my kids, and so we had to get one, and he's going to go camping with us from now on.
Awesome.
Yep, that's awesome. Yeah. I always wondered if you were taking that along just in case, and reading your book. I'm going to show this again. the Bitterroot series, and this is the Footprints of a Legend. This
Yep.
one here, and I wasn't sure when I first got these books. I got these from you in at Phenomicon. You signed them for me and everything, which was really cool. But when I was reading this particular book is about somebody who confronted. It's a novel.
Right.
So it's about somebody who confronted a Bigfoot and then was taken. And then what he goes through being taken, and now his father and everybody's looking for him out there. But and I don't want to give too much of the book away for anybody that wants to get this, or the other one, which is you have a third one you're working on too, right? Is that out yet?
You see this mess over here? That's my computer.
Yeah. Still working
on
it. Okay, this one's Bigfoot and the Tripwire is the second one. So, yeah, good stuff. But I always thought that because you had the little dude, you had the little Bigfoot on the back here of your backpack. I thought, well, if he runs into a family out there, you're going to give that to the little kid and go, hey, the little kid Bigfoot, and say, hey, look what I got. You can play with this toy or something.
Just like him.
Yep.
Yeah, a little action figure for
if
the
I run
little
into
guy.
all I have to do is outrun my cameraman. Maybe I'll just take off the backpack.
That's funny.
Just be faster than the slowest guy there. Yep, that's all you got to do.
Hey Jeff, we have a question from a friend of Russ's, if you don't mind reading it out.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, this is from Robert Jensen. He says, when you go out in the woods, do you use a scent block, Russ, or a scent block close? A scent block or scent block close?
No, actually, I don't. My technique for my research, and it you might think I'm half crazy for this, but I always want to face the wind and go into the wind. And that's something I did. That's a technique I adapted, which every hunter will tell you, so what? Everybody does that, dummy. But I do. I walk towards the wind to where whatever my body has on it isn't out in front of me and alerting everything in front of me.
Right.
I've actually hung my clothes out in outside in the open air, and I won't use dryer sheets, and I'll literally wash them with no detergent. So I'll wash them and dry them with no dryer sheets, and I'll hang them outside for a couple of days, just so that just to let them air out, and that's what I'll wear. But it kind of defeats the purpose because everything in my backpack either smells pine bark, smoke, from a campfire or whatever. So everything I have does smell human, no matter what. So I can only go so far with trying to block my scent. Bert, thank you for chiming in. It's so good that you threw a question at us, and I will come see you in Washington one of these days. I promise. Bert Jensen, I grew up with him. He's one of my classmates in high school.
Ah, okay.
Wow.
Awesome guy.
That's really
Thanks.
cool. Yeah, I'm glad he was here. That's really cool that he
thank you.
showed up here tonight to watch. That's really nice. You mentioned thermals a little bit ago, and I know Mike's probably got another question too, but I'll let you go next, Mike. I promise. But you mentioned thermals.
Mike, no questions, Mike.
Oh.
Talking about the thermals, and Mike and I were talking. Actually, Mike and I were talking about this just the other night, and I actually had it in the intro video. We were talking about that thermal that you got, that you spotted when you were up in the
Season 1.
In Oregon.
What's that? Season 1,
Yep.
yeah. And you spotted it across that clearing.
Yep.
You saw the thermal. It was a blob, and it looked like it was making some movement. And you watched it for a little bit, and then it just kind of disappeared behind a wall or something.
Went away.
What do you make of that? I mean, it just fascinates me how that disappeared. We didn't see it go through between tree and tree and tree. It was just gone.
You saw the clearing in the daytime. There's no trees.
Right.
There was nothing for it to hide behind. However, there is a small stream that winds right through that middle of that clearing, but it,
Really?
a couple feet, and it's wet and cold and pretty nasty because I fell in it. But anyway,
Is there a blooper reel?
That's what we need.
Is there a blooper reel?
oh, I'm sure Zach has plenty of good blooper stuff. one day he's gonna blackmail me with it.
I got to talk to him. I got to get his address. Yeah.
You know what? You should have him on your show. He is.
I would love to.
That'd be
He films for Deadliest Catch, Mike Rowe's Dirtiest Jobs, our show.
Really?
He's all He's
Oh,
somebody
wow.
really interesting to talk to, because he's just a wealth of knowledge and he's pure genius when it comes to a camera.
Wow. I would love
So-
to talk to him.
I have a theory.
Do you?
Let me run this past you.
Okay.
I did an experiment while I was in Washington, and it didn't make the show, which I think maybe I understand why. But I thought I would set up a camera, just a regular camera, pointing at me. And then I set up my thermals right beside it to where you could see me and you can see the thermal camera all in the same frame. So you're seeing me live and you're seeing the thermal from this camera behind both.
Mhm.
And I took off my shirt, and that's probably why they didn't show it. Yeah, he's on the chest. Nobody wants to see that. I took off my shirt and I went into the water because I was right by a river. I went into the water and submerged myself for a couple seconds. And when I came up, you couldn't see me.
Wow.
Mm.
And you never see the Predator where it just looked all squiggly as I came up and rose up out of the water. It was cool as could be. I really wanted them to show that because it looked really, really cool. But there I am with no shirt on, so I thought they didn't want to show that, and I don't blame them. He wants a guy with no shirt on. But it took a while, but you could see down my arms, in my forearms, and across my chest as the blood started heating up that surface water.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me about a minute to fully appear in the thermal.
Wow. Wow.
And it was cool as could be. So I will promise this. I'm going to do that same experiment with no shirt on, and I'll put it on YouTube or something so that people can actually see what it looked like, because coming out of that water in the thermal, I wasn't there, but I was standing right in front of the camera.
Wow.
So that was my theory. That, and I'm sitting there. I'm a hairless cat, so I have no fur. I'm not a hairy guy.
Yeah.
So you think if something has a lot of long 6-inch hair covering the body and it's really thick, once it gets cold, it would take longer.
Oh yeah, very good
That
point.
makes sense.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, I've got a couple pictures of that we shared when we were talking about this. Was the unknown.
Yep.
Here that you had, and then of course there's you when you walked out there.
Yep. I'm wearing
yep.
my head in this day.
Yep. And then there's when you went out, and there's kind of the two that were put together.
Overlay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the overlay of the two of you. That's you here, and look at the size of this thing. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
That's
again,
amazing.
it's one of those things, like you had said before. You haven't come face to face with a Bigfoot, but you've captured a lot of evidence. But until you get that proof, it's evidence, right? And so this is just another piece of that evidence and it leaves us wondering, what could that have possibly been? And then they did that, I think it's called Connect, where they showed like the body, where they shown it was moving and a leg going up over us. Yeah, the animation showing a leg coming up over it, maybe a little bit of arm swing. So it would definitely look like it was something bipedal that was walking along and stepping over logs or something. So what else does that? I mean,
hey Jeff, if you show that picture, you got to put a red circle around it.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. This right here is
that's a huge.
If you zoom in, yeah, I know.
So Russ, was that you could see that it was elevation wise, it looked like it was up higher than where you were. Was there something over there that it would have been standing on, or did the grade go up higher? Because you can see it's not at the head level, certainly isn't the same size. I mean, obviously it's much bigger.
Yeah, there's a tree behind it. There's a tree behind me, and there's a tree between the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't step out in front of a tree. Those are the 3 trees that are prominent in that photograph.
Mm-hmm.
And they matched it up with the fence. There's an old rickety wooden fence post, and they were able to match up that with the fence and get a size reference and from exactly where I was.
Wow.
So that
Amazing.
it had some significant heat going on there.
Right.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'm just, well, with my shoes on, I'm about 6'1".
Okay.
Barefoot, I'm just barely over 6 feet.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That thing is huge.
Yeah, it truly is. That was an amazing capture right there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Mike. I know you've got some questions. I've been stealing the show. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. So I was going to ask you about the little GPS trackers, and
Yep.
in season 3, and it got caught on you, chased it with your phone. How far did you chase it? And if it wasn't Bigfoot, who on this planet is faster than you in the woods? Because to me, that was the most remarkable part right there, was that it outpaced you easily from what it looked like.
Thanks there, Mike. Just rub that in.
Well, I mean, you're not bad, but
Nice save.
in that terrain, it's like I felt like a kid on a playground, and the big bully was running around me. He took my hat, and there was no way I was going to catch it.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. Very exhausting, very exasperating. And I was starting to get, sorry if I can say this or not, but I was starting to get pissed, because I felt like I was getting that cat and mouse. I would get so close to it, and then it would go out of range. It's like it knew exactly where I was at. And then I would wait, and I'd keep going in the direction that I had it last, and then it would come in and give me a signal. And I'm like, okay, we're on, let's go. And I didn't have my big backpack. I had the small one.
Yeah.
So I could move agile through that area, because I literally ran through some of that stuff. I was moving. And then you're right, it outdistanced me, outpaced me, faster, quicker, more agile. There was no way. And I could see, well, any piece of wildlife could do that. Any deer, elk, bear,
Sure.
coyote. I mean, that's just, you're in their house.
Mm-hmm.
And they can outrun you at any given moment. But it was like it was taunting me. Come in close, run. Come in close, run, and see how much the old man could take. And I'm telling you, it was a lot, but it was fun, because when your heart and your adrenaline's going, and you feel like it's going to be right here in front of me, and I'm looking through the thermals, and I'm just trying to get a fix on. All I wanted was just that one visual, just to confirm that it wasn't a wolf or a coyote, or just wanted something to tell me exactly what it was. Never found out.
Wow.
And then we get the tracker.
Yeah.
Finally got the tracker. And what scared me is it was by a big honking tree. And we got up close to the tree, and my heart just started racing. I'm like, back away from this tree. It's above us, because I'm right on top of it.
Oh.
I was 5 feet away, and I wasn't getting a thermal hit. And it was a humongous tree. So I'm thinking, holy crap, we're ready to get ambushed or eaten.
Yeah.
And that was a very ugly feeling, because militarily wise, I know better.
Yeah.
And I just blundered right into that space like an idiot. And but it was on the ground. But I back away, and we're lights on looking at the tree, because that was very foolish of me. So, and then it had hair on it, and that was pretty creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So
amazing stuff.
Yeah, about that hair and stuff like that. I mean, we see the analysis of different hairs, like a human hair or an animal hair that has that. And again, I forgot the name of it, Mike. You had to help me. What's that thing in the middle of a hair?
Medulla.
Medulla, like going up the center of it.
Yep.
I don't know what.
But I always get that name messed up too, because Ronnie and Maria will call it everything like a Medusa. It's the Medusa. Mandela or Stephen's Funky Cole Medina. And you forget what the heck it is. You're like, that thing in the hair, what is it?
Yeah, that thing in the center of the hair,
Yeah.
So, but apparently, like and again, if Bigfoot were real, they say that it doesn't have that in there.
Right.
And so if they analyze the hair and it doesn't have that, then everybody gets very excited about that. I don't know. but you got to collect them. I mean, I've seen you, pick them off of a log or whatever when you found one. And anything that you can shed on that. I mean, what do you think about that yourself? The hair samples and stuff.
You collect everything. Doesn't matter.
You have to, yeah.
And I'm coming back with a backpack full of crap, and it's like, okay, it's 92 pounds at the conference, but I swear to you, after I get back from being a week or so out, back, and it's got all kinds of crap in it, rocks and sticks, and this was interesting. Let's grab it. But the thing is I want to say this for the audience too, is a lot of times people say, why didn't you test it for, why didn't you test that hair? Why didn't you, you got to test for saliva on that stick, or you have to test for everything. Each of those tests are thousands of dollars. They're very expensive. Mm-hmm. You have to be extremely selective. So you do your vetting process first. I mean, we get done with an expedition and there's just a ton of different hair samples. And you go through them methodically one at a time and see which one it raises that interest. And then you're down to 3 or 4 at that point. Mm-hmm. And then you got to figure out, okay, what does this look like? Is this typical elk hair that's hollow in the center? Is it brittle? Is it like a deer? Or is it like a wolf? There's so many things, and you start trying to match it up to anything else. And pretty soon you just get, you just start getting, eliminating a lot of the different stuff. My thing's showing low battery. Let me, I wonder where my battery charger is.
I know we didn't. I don't know how much time we had with you tonight. I know I told you it was completely up to you how much time you wanted to spend here too. Yeah. If you want to go look for it real quick, that's fine. And we can.
Yeah. Cut to commercial. Maybe sell some.
Folks, I've got this nice travel mug right here. I want to help support the show. It's a J-Free 906. Got my logo on it. Travel mug. Yeah. Oh, look, there's one right there. Yeah, he's got one too. Yeah. So, all right. Thanks, Mike. And you can get one of those. The link is below in the description of the show. If you want to get one of those for $25, you click on that link and it'll take you out to the wonderful lady, Jess Grollo, that makes those. She does a laser cutting on them for me, and she can send it out to you. You can have one of those for yourself, and it helps to support the show. So there you go. There's my commercial for now. As we're waiting, this has really been such an awesome time here talking with Russ, because there's so much that, like I was saying earlier, I respect his opinion on these things. When you talk to somebody, you get the feeling, if they're, full of BS or not. And I don't know if I'm really good at that, but I can tell, I get that impression of talking to all of them. Now, Ronnie, we know, is the first one that hears that knock. He's like, oh, that's a Bigfoot knock.
Yep.
Or find the fish trap that was in the river.
Yes.
When you saw that fish trap in the river, he's like, oh yeah, Bigfoots make those fish traps like that, and so you're kind of like, but Maria and of course Russ is a lot more.
Maria seems to rein him in pretty quick.
Yeah, she does. She reins Ronnie in.
She has a pretty high standard when it comes to scientific evidence.
You can almost see a roll of the eyes.
Hey, Jeff. I want to ask Russ something. Bigfoot structures, Russ.
Yes.
We have a question from Tom Burns about Bigfoot structures. Okay. What's common about Bigfoot structures? You've observed quite a few of them, I'm sure, in your research. How do you discern a Bigfoot structure from a human structure? Can you talk a little bit about debris fields when Bigfoot has movement and goes to another place? We were talking about, patterns of behavior with structures. So if you could talk to me or talk to the audience about the commonalities in Bigfoot structures.
I got all plugged in. I forgot to turn on the power strip.
Oh,
pretty smart when it comes to electrical. First, let's just establish that. Number 2, before we get to Bigfoot structures.
Okay.
I want to give you guys got to do your commercial. I want to do one.
Okay, please.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
You ever have a hard time sleeping? Here's your cure. You pull up the blankets and your hands slip off and you punch yourself in the chin. You'll go right to sleep. That's all I got. I mean, that was probably the worst possible joke. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. Bigfoot structure.
Yes. Yeah. Buy his book. That's a good commercial.
Yeah, there you go.
Buy all 3. Well, 2 of them.
books and action figures. We're set. I've seen a lot of Bigfoot structures. I really had the privilege of having people take me out to see some really cool stuff, amazing stuff. But there's the but. I have the hardest time buying into Bigfoot structures, the toughest time. Now, there's one that we saw in Washington that was pretty amazing because the way it was placed and put together, you would have had to have a lift truck up there to place these sticks where they were and these logs across and made this really, really intricate thing, probably 20 feet off the ground. And the first thing I do is I'm like, I'm calling bull crap. Let me show you why. And I walk around the trees, the two trees that it was attached to. And you know how those little tiny, really skinny branches that come off, you know, in the moss and everything else? Not a single one of them was scaled off there. Not one.
Wow.
So whatever put it up there was had some incredible reach, or did it from above. You know, there's no way, and it was in a pretty wooded area, so I could see going from tree to tree getting to it. But that would have taken some really, really incredible methodical work. And where we were, the nearest road was miles and miles away. And the road that we were on hadn't seen the tire track in probably 30 years. There was trees this big around growing up in the middle of the trail. Wow. So that was absolutely impossible. I can't think of anybody that's foolish enough to bring a extension ladder 6 miles up in the forest, just hoping that some person would come by and see it and think, oh my God, that's kind of weird. Too much work involved in that. Right. And that one had me puzzled. Every single thing else that I've seen, I look at it as, could me and you three guys do it? Yeah, we could have done it. And that's the first thing I do is I try to discourage every piece of it being non-man-made. I always think, oh, me and a couple buddies could have done that. Moving on. And because unless you see me and Jeff build it, you can't blame us for building it. Well, the same goes for unless I see Bigfoot build it, I can't say Bigfoot did it.
Right.
So, and if it's not so outlandish that it couldn't be built by a man, that's what I blame it on every time so far.
That's smart.
So, like I said, keep a very, very distant reality check on all of that. Tree knocks, I've heard tree knocks all over the place. And it could have been 3 guys. How do I know it wasn't? Because it was far away and out of sight. So it doesn't take a genius to figure out that a tree knock could have been made by anybody.
Yep.
You know, 2 in a row, 3 in a row. It could have been anyone or anything. We followed up on a tree knock I was with Adam Davis and a couple others, and I kept hearing this thump, thump, thump. And one of the guys, not Adam, but one of the guys was getting pretty excited. That's a tree knock. I was like, sure is. Let's go see it. and it was a tree knock. And what it was every now and then the wind would knock this tree into the other one, and about 20 feet up, that one branch would hit it. 1, 2, 3, and then it would stop swaying. And it was cool because it did. It had that really cool baseball bat hollow sound to it. And I'm like, Bigfoot. So that's why I say, you know, when you hear something or you see something, cast your tracks, listen to your sounds, follow up on everything, because not everything is Bigfoot.
So Russ, is there anything that you would say is exclusive to Bigfoot that you've seen evidence-wise that you would say this is definitely belongs in the Bigfoot camp, or do you try to dismiss it or explain it away?
I would rather. So that's the thing is. That's that balancing act that I do.
Correct.
I like to think that a very, very well cast track with the lines through it, the dermal ridges, the break, the stride, the way it pushes off. But the funny thing is, and I'm gonna make a lot of people mad with this next comment. I've seen some footprints that people say, "Hey, check out this footprint," and the toe and the last 2 toes are rolled in towards the big toe. Well, our feet do that because we'll wear shoes.
Mhm.
If you've ever been to Africa or anywhere and seen people that have no shoes, Aborigines, their toes are like
Yeah, it's more widespread.
Yes.
Yeah.
very, very widespread.
Yep.
Some of these footprints that come up, and I'm like, wow, that's interesting. I like that. Look at the size of that. And I say something nice about it, but I don't walk away saying what's on my mind, because it's hard to, you don't want to crush anybody because you want them to keep going.
Right.
Don't stop looking. But I've seen some footprints that were what I would consider the gold standard.
Oh, wow.
I mean, pretty amazing. The distance between the strides, the prints themselves. I'm like I said, I'm 6 feet, and I couldn't run to make that stride. So it's some pretty cool stuff. But all it is, it could have been Jeff on a pair of drywall or stilts. Okay.
Yep.
So, and that's my first thing. Can I fake this? Yes, I can. So I need to stay reserved until I see something beyond that. Maybe there's some fur on the tree. Maybe there's something else to back this up. I got 2 pieces of evidence for this one thing.
Sure.
Then I start getting, the
Right.
That's responsible science. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, looking for the mundane explanation first can be tough, especially when you're excited.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Wet Blanket sometimes, but but I would rather be, I'd rather even say that I don't understand, or I'm not sure, or inconclusive. I'm much more comfortable with that before I dive in the water.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that, and this is something that I mentioned on the intro show that we did a couple weeks ago, was that the one thing that really intrigues me is that you take the historical record or the legend passed down in like Indigenous folks. You take the legends that's been passed down about how they have, interacted with a Bigfoot type creature over many, 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 many years and generations. And that's what really gets me. I mean, you take that, and in some, you got to get rid of most of the pictures that are out there that are taken. We talked about that earlier, but it's the stories that people have and talking to people. If you have, I think it was even mentioned on the very first episode of Expedition Bigfoot that over 50 years has been over 10,000 just in the U.S. alone, 10,000 different reports of a sighting of Bigfoot. Now, all those 10,000 can't be crazy. All those 10,000 can't be a bear or some other kind of weird thing. Some of them have to have some sort of ground in, evidence in there of a sighting. And then you take the legends that have been passed down, as I was saying, with the Indigenous peoples over hundreds of years, and how they've pictographs and petroglyphs, things like that. You're out in Vernal. I mean, you've seen those, at the McConkey Ranch. You sent, a picture of one of those. What do you make about the stories passed down with the Indigenous peoples? I mean, that can't be tossed out. You have to take some validity on that.
Right. You're talking Wallace, Slick, Patterson, Gimlin, Freeman. There's so many people that have been talking about this, since the 50s and 60s. I mean, we're talking back a ways. And you're thinking, okay, well, you think that maybe it's just one of those little fads or phases. And then you start breaking down historically. Now, I grew up in Montana on an Indian reservation, the Flathead Indian Reservation in Arley, Montana. And I grew up with these on a tribe. The natives were there. And I felt out of place because there's, I'm on a reservation. And these guys didn't share anything with me. They're, I'm just that dumb white kid, and I didn't fit in. I wasn't one of them. And that was fine. But once I got older, there were a few that broke out of the weeds and said, hey, let me tell you something. My grandfather or my great-grandfather had this story. And I listen, and it's just like, man, where were you when I was getting made fun of? Well, they weren't the ones picking on me. They were the ones just sitting back. But I've heard from a couple classmates that were just mind-blowing. And this is passed down through several generations. Now, I went to the McConkey Ranch, and I have that picture of the one thing that has humongous feet. Look at the size of the feet. But look at the size reference to the other two on each side of it.
Right.
That's no tiny thing. And then you even go back, start stepping into the biblical times, David and Goliath. Goliath was a monster.
Yep.
Okay. So even by today's standards, you see a basketball player that's 7 or 8 feet tall, you're thinking, holy crap, that's a big person. And if everybody else is 5 or 6 feet, that's just a giant. And to me, that's a giant.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start seeing things that go back with so much history, and that was long before the Patterson-Gimlin film. I mean, what you're seeing on that rock scratched into it with the emphasis on the feet and the height.
Yep.
That's a very big creature.
Yeah.
Look at the top of the head. I've never really paid a lot of attention to that. Look at the top of the head.
Mm-hmm. How it sticks up here on the top.
Yeah. So one thing I learned about the petroglyphs is when they're symmetrical. See how it has the 3 lines on coming out of both sides of the head?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If they're not, how many fingers does it have?
6. I was counting them. That's what I was doing. There's 6 fingers. Yeah. You can't see it on the other hand. It's kind of got a washout right here, washing out. But yeah, there's 6 on this hand right here.
So let's go back into the lore a little bit. And you start hearing stories about 6 fingers, 6 toes, and the height and the size of these things. And it just kind of goes like, we're not crazy. With all the stories around, we're not out of our minds to be looking for something that has so much history and so much past.
Wow.
The people who talk about it are believable. And traditionally, with Native Americans that I went to school with, when they tell me their stories about their great grandpa that heard it from their great grandpa,
Exactly.
that's not fresh news. This has been ongoing, and it's not unique. It's been here.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's the thing that gets me. And I become so fascinated by that in itself, is the stories passed down. And I have a tendency that, I'm one of those kind of people that I want to believe the indigenous people and then pass down these legends from family to family to family, or generation to generation. And then you look at, pictographs or petroglyphs, and they didn't have a camera. They didn't have a cell phone to take a picture. So when they saw something and wanted to record it, how did they record it? They had to record it by etching it into a stone wall or making some sort of a picture. That's how they recorded what they saw. And they did their best. They found the guy, whoever it was, that could do the best work on there to try to get this image down as best he could. Not everybody's an artist, right? I'm not. I can't draw a picture to save my butt. But, they would find, and somebody would record that. So were they just having fun, just making up stuff? Oh, let's just make these weird looking creatures for the heck of it. No, they were recording what they saw.
A lot of those things in McConkey Ranch are the kings. They show the one thing that really stood out in my mind, and I didn't send it to you, and I'm sorry, but you know how it'll show you have a face of rock, and they'll chip out all just where the human is, right? They have one of the kings that on the face of the rock, they chipped all the area out from around it. So it's like a negative of So there was, and I don't know the story behind that. I don't know that anybody really, somebody knows. I don't. But there has to be significance to all those things that just show either an outline or from the outside edge of the body in, all being chipped out, or the outside of the body all taken away from outside of it.
Right.
There was a lot more work went into that.
Oh, absolutely.
A significance to that, why that was so much was put into that one. So there's a wall that has 3 kings on it.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've been there. Yeah, when I did the tour, when and there's Miriam, she's in the audience here too, watching, and she was, I think, RB Mora. There was several people that are insiders at Skinwalker Ranch, and when we were out there, we actually met each other there and went out to the McConkey Ranch, and we got to see that. James Keenan, he would be the guy that would probably help a lot with that.
Probably
James Keenan.
right off.
Yeah, because he was there at film. Huh?
Yeah. James would say, "You don't know that?" Come on, Russ. Very, very, very smart man. Very
Yes,
smart.
He is.
Yes, he is.
Him.
Yeah,
Hey,
I've had
Russ,
him on the show. Yeah, he's
I got
really
a
cool.
question for you. You were talking
Yeah.
about how tree structures and my background's engineering, and so I've got a pretty good, strong scientific background too. So when you talk about the tree structures and how it's kind of, if it could still be made by a human, I kind of got to set it aside.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily going to say it's caused by Bigfoot, but James is here. Look at that.
Yeah, James is here. Hey,
Hey.
James. Speak of the guy, there he is.
James, tell us why that thing has been chipped away on the outside of the body and not the inside. Is there a significance to that? I'm sure I know he knows right off the top of his head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Sure
go
he
ahead. I'm
does.
sorry with your question about
So I was on the fence too when it came to the different calls and the sounds, because in my mind, a lot of the stuff that you hear that gets played, even the Sierra sounds, and I now have a copy myself. I was kind of on the fence because it kind of sounds like, well, if a bunch of guys are around drinking, one of them says, "Here, hold my beer." Could they have made those sounds? Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but as I've gotten into it deeper, and Skinwalker Ranch has kind of pushed us to look at things closer, is the spectrogram or spectrograph. When you look at some of these sounds in spectrograph, you can tell when it's a human making the noise and it's not a human. Not saying it's Bigfoot, but you guys have shown that on the show a number of times, that if you just try to do it by ear, you can't really tell. But
Right.
once you analyze that sound and show the different frequencies that are involved, it becomes a different ball game, and it's a lot easier to tell. What is could be a coyote, and you can match those sounds in spectrogram very easily. You got some interesting sounds, and the famous "Tell me you heard that" sound. We love that one. You also heard a cackle. You called it a hyena type sound. Tell us a little bit about that.
That made my skin crawl.
Okay.
It was okay. So we were where were we? Was it California or Washington? Everything starts looking the same when you close it.
It's all the woods.
Yeah.
I believe. I think it was California, and I had been out that way maybe a mile or so, and then I came back, and we were trying to see things through the thermals and that sort of thing. And I heard something behind me, and it just kind of sounded kind of funny. Now coyotes will do that. They'll do that little yipping thing, and it's just like, hey, yeah, so what? I mean, I grew up in Montana. I know what a coyote sounds like.
Right.
Sure. And bobcats. Have you ever listened to
Oh yeah.
bobcats fighting? You'd swear it was
That's
somebody getting
horrible.
scalped. Horrible sound. And you can actually pull it up on YouTube and listen to that. It's just creepy. That sound was, it sounded just like a hyena. It didn't have that coyote pitch to it, or the coyote sound or pattern to it. It was, for lack of a better term, it sounded like a hyena. And it did it a couple times and just stopped, just left the silence behind. And I thought, okay, well, I'll keep listening. Nothing ever followed it. And it maybe, I don't know what it was, but that, to me, that was one of those unknown, or there's no way to find out what it was unless, I was standing next to it and actually, I'd have no idea. It was wild.
Yeah.
You've also had some of the analysis showed infrasound, and we've talked about that in some of the previous shows. Is the fact that the infrasound, humans can't hear it, but you can feel the effect of it. Have you ever experienced anything like that, or unexplained suddenly getting nauseous, that type? Because I know it has physiological effect on the body, but it can also induce almost instant fear.
There's 2 times in my life when that actually affected me. One time was on the show, and it's just like, hey, I'm done tonight. We still had, quite a few hours we were supposed to be filming, and I just hit the timeout. I said, no, I'm stopping. Shut the camera off. I'm done. And he ran it for a few seconds, and it was like I felt like the side of my head was trying to push itself into the other side of my head.
Wow.
So much pressure and so much, and it just like a light switch.
Wow.
Just la la, and then just immediate. And I didn't hear. Well, we were tracking something, but there was nothing. I can't say if it was. Everything makes sound. I mean, walking through the leaves, a chipmunk will sound like an elephant stomping through the jungle. You know,
Yep.
dry leaves make a lot of sound. We were kind of following something, but whatever hit me, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And the next day I was okay, but that night my body said, "You're done. I don't care what the camera guy says. You're done." And he was gracious enough to say, "Okay, you know, I get it. Let's just stop." Didn't affect him. Boy, it kicked my butt. The other time was when I was doing research with Dan Lindholm, Ed Brown, Adam Davis. I keep thinking there was somebody else. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble if I forgot somebody. Dan.
We won't tell.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure they're not watching. I'm going to get a text. Hey, idiot, it was me. Yeah, Dan Lindholm, Ed Brown, Adam Davis, myself, and now I know who he is. I can't remember his name though. Tall guy. It'll come to me in a minute. But we were seeing some really weird activity. We went up to Soha, which is a Southern Oregon habituation area or something like. I see. I'm really blowing this whole story.
No,
we were getting some activity, and I was seeing things on thermal instead of in my night vision goggles. You can only see green, but in my thermals, I was seeing orange. And that told me that there was something going on that wasn't supposed to be going on. It was something different.
Wow.
So, and then we were hearing stuff. And Adam, I remember just sitting there thinking, wow, that was just crazy. And next thing you know, Adam is like right in my face and he's shaking me. He says, Russ, are you all right? You know, how do you like that accent? Huh? Are you all right? But he was shaking me. He said, "Are you all right?" And I said, and I looked up at him and I didn't recognize him. I literally sat there catatonic for a couple minutes, and something affected me to where I was physically there, but everything else was just catatonic and blacked out.
Wow.
It took me a while to finally get my blood pumping. I had to get up and move around, and even then it took quite a while to get myself kind of out of it. But I felt like I don't drink. I haven't drank since the 80s, but I felt like I was just coming in out of the worst drunk hangover ever.
Wow.
And my body, every piece of my body was just dead to the world. It was the strangest thing ever.
Wow.
So be the second time something affected me that I don't understand. It wasn't good. It wasn't.
Yeah, and you can't hear infrasound, so you can't tell it was a sound that caused that. So, man, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would, that would definitely, and it's a good thing that Zach is there to, if you said, "Hey, we're done," he's, working with you, he would know.
Yeah.
To work with you on that too. You sent a couple other pictures. I want to get to these real quick.
Okay.
This is really interesting. This is explain. It's a rock that was found, or it's
in Kentucky. There was a gentleman that brought that forward. He said, "I got a handprint of a Bigfoot on a stone." And when I first heard that, without seeing it, when I first heard it, I said, "Yeah, a handprint on a stone. Show me." And I thought it was kind of funny. And it's been dismissed as just naturally occurring.
really,
But there's something, how when you get that gut feeling, you just can't let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's me. I couldn't let it go. There was something about that how when they always tell you, like at the stalactite things, where they always want you to touch that one piece of rock because the oil from your hands keeps it from growing any further, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And I looked at that and I thought there has to have been, there has to have been something that brushed up against it or pushed up against it or made those grooves.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like 6 fingers.
It sure does.
Yeah.
And then to see the size of it, you say you have it on your lap. It looks like right there. And I think, yeah, here's a picture of it right next. You're putting your hand next to it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Size to it and some depth to it, and I keep thinking that's got to be fingers and a thumb. And it was just the hardest thing to dismiss. And you know what? It might just be a rock, and cool, it's just a rock. But there's something about it that in my gut said you gotta really look into that, because there's something about it that has my attention. And like any good researcher, if you have that thing that makes you turn back and go look at something twice and 3 times, pay attention.
Yeah.
Miss it. And
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
So the coolest thing about that, do you have any other pictures of that? I think I sent you 3.
Yeah, there's one. Let's see. Hang on. So I don't jump through these real fast and get everybody all dizzy. There is one more. Oh, here we go.
I'm doing this on purpose. You know that, right?
Yeah,
zoom
there's this one here.
Zoom in on that hair. That is an amazing hair day.
Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah. Wow.
Seriously.
Yeah. Not like today.
Well done.
Right?
Well done.
You look like you're needing a shave, but other than that, yeah, you're doing good. Yeah.
I got that going on today too. I couldn't let this piece of evidence go. And in fact, if you guys look over Facebook over the last few days, this last weekend, I went out to Kentucky and saw Zach, and just did a little bit more research. Got to do an amazing interview with somebody who is the son of an eyewitness, and his mother's story is mind-blowing. And I will share that at Phenomicon. So if you all want to hear it, got to go to Phenomicon.
Absolutely. I'm going to be there. Absolutely.
Yeah. So this here, this piece of evidence that you see here, I told Zach, I said, when I come to Kentucky, I want to have a conversation with that gentleman about that stone. And he didn't make it easy. But he relinquished possession of that stone for an undisclosed sum. But I have that now, because for some reason in my gut and in my mind, I can't let that go.
No.
So I have
That's
that.
too cool. Yeah, it is very interesting. Whatever it is, it's it does. It looks like a hand, like a handprint.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that, but
I want people to be able to see that at the conference too. I'll have it at the conference.
Great! I'll get a chance to see it then.
Yeah, I'm not one of those guys that thinks that you should just keep everything in a box and keep it to yourself. This is for people to see and to share, and I want to hear their opinions on it too when they look at it and see the size. Mm-hmm. But that just something about it. Mm-hmm. Something, you know how your gut tells you. I listened.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm glad you did, because it's truly interesting. I can't wait to get a look at that thing here. I think I've shared. Well, and I wanted to show this again real quick and talk about this backpack. I don't know who this gentleman is here, but he's carrying around your 90-pound backpack, and that's something that I mentioned it to you in the pre-show. And I'm going out actually this weekend, Saturday. I am actually going out and going to look for some evidence of skunk ape here in Florida. And I'm going out with a lady that that she's invited me to come out with her group to look around, and I'm going to do some film. I'm going to interview her and her group while we're out there. But I thought, when I first saw her picture, I thought, man, I've seen her somewhere before. I know I've seen her. I don't know. I couldn't place it where. Well, then she shared a couple pictures of it with me. And one of the pictures she was the woman at Phenomicon in Vernal that put your backpack on and was walking. You had people, putting this on. You had volunteers come up, walk around there, around the conference center. And she was one of them. And I thought, that's where I remember her. Her name is Marie Dumont. And so we're going this weekend. She's got a Bigfoot Facebook page and all of that. And so, yeah, we're going out this weekend. She's taking me out with a group. Can't wait. But she must be, pretty tough to be handling that thing.
All right. So I'm going to give you 2 things. This guy holding the backpack, that's Jeff Byers. And that is his action figure on the back of the backpack.
Oh, okay. All right.
Nice.
From my truck into the conference for me. And he put it down at the conference, and he looked at, now Jeff is taller than I am. He's a big boy. He put that thing down, and he looked at me and said, man, that is no joke. And I believe you actually that thing around all day.
All right, I'm gonna have to try it this year at Phenomicon.
Yep, your body adapts to whatever you put it through. The body is an amazing thing. I will tell you something about her is she doesn't weigh more than a bag of Skittles. She's just this tiny little petite sweetheart of a lady. I mean, she is really, really awesome. But she is badass and as tough as they come. Because she did. She put on, I bet that thing weighed darn near as much as her.
Yeah.
She walked the whole conference hall with that backpack on.
Yeah.
Didn't falter, didn't struggle. Well, if she did, nobody was going to see it.
Nobody was, yeah.
But she's tough. She is tough. Good luck keeping up with that one in Florida, because that'll be challenging.
Yeah, I remember also too, and we're getting ready to wrap things up here. It's been about an hour and a half, and I don't want to keep you. But you told a story out there at Vernal. You told a story about the spray, and when you I don't know if I want to spoil it here, because I don't know if you still tell that story at different conferences, but that was awesome. What kind of spray was that? What was it?
So the network, we're out in the mountains, we're dealing with the wildlife, and the network said, you can't carry guns, but we'll allow you to carry bear spray. Now, bear spray is pretty nasty stuff. I mean, if you don't believe me, go buy some and just stand 10 feet away, spray it, and then just try to walk through that plume and come out the other side without just coughing and gagging. It's awful. Zach and I had been out in the woods for quite a while, and we had an extraction point where they were going to meet us with one of those little side-by-side buggies. What do you call them, a racer or something? But there's two. In the back of it has a little, like a baby pickup truck bed. It's a four-wheeler.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would give me a chance to. We were going to come back down into town, get a change of clothes, shower, try to freshen up, do the best we could, and then just go right back out again. And hopefully get a little bit of rest while we're there. So we had an extraction point and time and date located. So the guy shows up. We meet him at this point. He shows up. But before then, Zach and I were getting into an area where I kept smelling a mountain lion, and it was circling us.
I remember that.
So when you have something like that that's getting that close, you take what you have as a defense and you put your hand on it, or that it's close. You know how they always show when somebody gets scared and he puts his hand on his weapon or his knife, or in my case, the bear spray. So I'm thinking, well, this isn't a gun or a knife. So what I'm going to do is it's got a little a thing on the handle that you can slide off of it, to where you have to slide it off before you can deploy the pepper spray. And this thing kept getting closer and closer. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and fiddle around with that thing if something's charging me. So genius here, he takes the trigger guard off of it, thinking I'll just be that quick, John Wayne style, just grab it and spray, And we got to where we were going to get extracted, and I forgot to put the thing back on it, of course. And Zach said, he said, scoot over, I'm driving. So he gets in the driver's seat, and and the guy that brought it up is over in the passenger seat. I take off my backpack and I throw it inside, and I'm thinking, great, now that you guys took the seats, I have to get in the back of this thing. Well, it's got this roll cage across the top of it. So I walk up behind it, I grab hold of the roll cage, and I fold my body in half and swing my body inside. Well, when I do that, I pinch my knee up to my chest, and what that does is it deploys the trigger on this bear spray, and it's pointed forward, right in the back of Zach's head, and he turns, is that bear spray? And he turns around, and it's getting him right in the face.
Oh, no.
You think it's bad? Okay, and that is. I'm not going to take it away from him. That's bad. But you have to understand that it filled my front pocket with bear spray. I had a wet stain on the front of my pants, like this, down my left leg, and from the center out. And let me tell you, you don't want to do that twice.
Oh, man.
Safety on always. Huh?
Yeah. So we got to a lake, and we get in the water at the lake, and just for anybody's information, water doesn't help.
Oh.
The thing that really diffuses it is milk. So we had to call in a gallon of milk I'm not. I had second like red three burns.
Burns. Yeah.
For days.
And
poor Jack, he took that spray right in the eyes, right in the face. Yeah.
And he's still with you.
What's that?
He's still with you.
Yeah, he doesn't know any better. if it was anybody else but this clown, he doesn't know what he's doing. Nah, he's stuck with me. We've gone through some amazing territory. He hurt his knee. He got bear sprayed. We've dealt with it all.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine anybody I'd rather be with.
Yeah. And I know that, when that time when you were talking about that, you kept hearing you guys were going, you were actually trying to get back to your camp, and you were going along, and you knew something was following you, because when you stopped, it stopped. You started walking, you heard it again, and you had him go ahead and then turn around and then film you walking towards him so he could see what was behind him and everything. And most of the time you turn around and you told him, he said, yeah, I think there's a mountain lion tracking us. And then you're walking ahead. He's the guy behind you with the camera. And I'm thinking, poor Zach.
All I have to do is run now.
Oh, poor guy. But you get into a situation like that, and and that's what I really respect about you, is that you weren't going, oh, that's a Bigfoot chasing us. You had smelled what you had determined was a mountain lion or a cat. You said, that's a cat, I smell it. And so there you are. And so you kept your level head, you guys kept moving, and was able to finally get out of there, and neither one of you got mauled, which was great. But that's the thing you encounter when you're out there doing this kind of thing, and you're out in the wilderness. Okay, so Bigfoot doesn't show up, but there's a lot of nocturnal creatures that are out at night looking for food. Yeah. And now you've just presented them with a meal. So, you have to be very careful of that, So
taco there.
What's that?
I was soft shell taco in a sleeping bag.
Yeah.
So I'll leave you with this one little thing, and then it's just so you guys can think about this when you're out there too. We think that, like, if I'm walking into the wind and I go into stealth mode and I stay low to the ground and I move silently, I have a pretty good chance of maybe sneaking up on a deer or an unsuspecting bear that's just rooting through making its own noise, doesn't hear me. Mm-hmm. If I think for a second that I am a ninja and I can sneak through the woods and the animals don't know that I'm there, it's foolish to think that way. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can get lucky sometimes. I mean, I consider myself pretty good in the woods, being stealthy, quiet, stalking. I can do that, but it takes years and years to just kind of get to where you're comfortable with it. Mm-hmm. But you think about it, I don't think for a second that I am so good that they don't know I'm there. So I want you guys all three to picture something. You're in your house and you're in your living room. Okay? This is your house. You know every sound in your house. You hear the furnace kick on to the left. You hear the refrigerator recycling. You hear the ice cubes drop in the tray. You hear the toilet in the second bathroom that you haven't fixed yet. It keeps running water. You hear the creaking of the house, the wind, the antenna bumping the house outside. You know all those sounds. But you introduce a new sound. That door opens, that front door opens. You know that sound. Or if the furnace is all the way at the other end of the hallway and you hear it running, and then you hear something block the sound, and then you hear it running again, you know somebody's in your hallway.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's that cognizant knowing your surroundings, hearing it, seeing it, and feeling it. I trained a couple boys that my ex-wife's kids, I make them sit in the forest in the daytime and identify all the sounds. I bring them right back out at 2 o'clock in the morning. I make them identify those same sounds. They're not allowed to be afraid of the dark. The sounds are the same day or night.
Right.
So if you're in your house and you hear something pass between you and that running heater, or you hear something, the creak in the floor, on the second level of the house, or any sound that is not you making it, you know that something's there, correct?
Right.
Okay. Animals count on that instinct to live.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So we're in their house and we think that we're that stealthy. We're not.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
They're aware of anything. And when you introduce something new, it's like if I walk through your living room with wet hands that are wet with gasoline, you're going to smell the gasoline, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Animals. We're a very different introduction of a new smell in the forest. So always go into the wind. Try to be quiet. Try to keep up, Jeff. You're not going to be up. I'm telling you.
No, probably not. I'm in pretty good shape, but I don't know. I probably couldn't keep up with you. You and Zach would leave me.
No, her this weekend in Florida.
Oh yeah. I probably won't be able to keep up with her either. Yeah, she's pretty tough.
Yeah.
So wow, this has been fantastic. I really, and I know you're a busy man, and you took time out of your day. And when I reached out to you to see if you would come on and share with us, and I tell you, this has been absolutely fascinating. Your story is great. I really have the opportunity to meet you, and honor for you to come on the show here. I really appreciate it so very, very much to share. Any last thoughts, Mike, John?
Can you tell us anything about season 4?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was the question. Yep.
It's the season right after season 3.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Season 4 in Alaska. What I can tell you about Alaska is it was one of the most amazing places I've ever been. And you can't go in the lower states and think that you know what the forest has to offer. You get up there and it's a whole different world. Man, it's different. It's meaner, tougher, very, very. You don't make mistakes out there, or else it'll gobble you up. Alaska was insanely beautiful, insanely wild. We don't know when it's going to air, though. We've asked the production company. The production company has asked the network. Network is not responding. Production company doesn't have anything to tell us. I assure you, as soon as we know, that you think I'm a big mouth on Facebook. You wait till I find out when season 4 is. I'll tell everybody.
Great.
You guys will all know.
Fantastic.
Great.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yes.
Me too.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I'm really concerned how my hair looked on season.
Oh, we'll let you know, because we'll be talking about it, because we're gonna pick up. Right now we're going through season 3, kind of revising reminding everybody what took place in season 3, and then as soon as season 4 comes out, we're going to be talking about your hair, and everything else that you do to Zach out there in the woods. We'll be talking about it every week.
Bring me back on after season 4 and scold me for my hair.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm going to be reaching out to Ronnie again. Ronnie said he would, and actually Maria said she would come on with Ronnie. I don't know. I think she's a little afraid of me.
That would be awesome.
But I haven't heard back from him, so I'm hoping that you could put in a good word for me. But I appreciate it. So it's been an honor to have you on the show, sir. I really do appreciate it. I will see you in Vernal when we come out there for Phenomicon 2023. I'm really looking forward to it, and quite a few of the people that are here tonight are too. I know that for sure. Mike, Owen, John, thank you guys very much. Everybody that's been watching here tonight, thank you all so very much for being here and sharing this hour and a half with Mr. Russell Acord. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much.
John, Mike, Jeff, thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate that.
The honor's ours. I tell you what, truly.
Thank you so much.
All right. Good night, everybody. Have a great one, and we'll catch you next time right here on J Free 906 Podcast. Good night.